do study abroad. Então, a gente vai um programa que a gente possa ter mobilidade dos alunos, né, de graduação pós, deles que venham para cá e dos nossos alunos que possam ir para lá. A gente tem conversado muito na reciprocidade, e essa tem sido a tônica do CAPES Global. Né? A gente acabou de aprovar, então, esse tem a nome para todos nós, um programa, então a gente está entre as 23 instituições encabeçando uma proposta, é o maior programa da história da internacionalização da UFLA, um projeto de 60 milhões de reais, né, que vai promover a internacionalização da nossa instituição, e uma das instituições parceiras é uma dessa UFLA. Antes disso, a gente já está enviando a primeira colaboração, né, então a Bárbara está indo para lá segunda-feira, para essa Tennesse, para começar essa parceria agora com os colegas. So I finished the Portuguese, and from now on, I expect you also to talk in English. I see smiles, I like that. Yeah, and in my course in English, so I teach the biocontrol course in English at the graduate level. So I this is suffer a little bit from involved. Thank you. So we are going to have our colleagues from the University of Tennesse to present a little bit of their work. And right after, we invited Fernanda Abreu, Dr. Fernanda Abreu. So she's an alumnus from our university, from the graduate program of entomology, that started her own company. And now she is at UFLA, back at UFLA, at our technological park. So it's we tried to have on this very short visit that they came, unfortunately, because of the weather constraints. And then we tried to have on the middle a little bit of everything we have, not only in terms of what we do, but also in terms of possibilities that we have in terms of collaboration and how the students can have, the students from UT can have this experience to combine to their training that they are having. Professor Kelly, feel free to, well, thank you very much for coming all the way to us.
Yes, thank you for having me. I know, I'm sorry we aren't spending as much time here as we originally planned. It would have been great to not be as rushed, but I'm glad we're here. And so we just kind of combine talks. And so we're going to talk about extension research and teaching within field crops production systems at University of Tennesse. I'm Heather Kelly, so I'm professor of plant pathology and also the IPM coordinator for the state of Tennessee. I'm in entomology and plant pathology department combined, so I do know some entomology too. And then I'm going to be introducing Jake Mallard. He's County Agricultural Natural Resources County Agent and County Director in Gibson County in West Tennessee. And then I'm also going to introduce Lucas Marquez. He's my master's student within University of Tennessee, but from Brazil. And he started in my program as an undergraduate intern in the summer months when completing his undergrad, and actually did kind of a second internship with me, and has now started his master's with me. And yeah, so before I forget, I've actually had a Brazilian intern in my program every year since 2017. So I'd love to keep that up and hopefully get some students from here also to continue that. And so to talk about University of Tennesse, I like to initially give a background on what a land-grant university is in the United States. And so the land-grant system was developed based on acts. And so the Morrill Acts of 1862 and 1890. What this was is they really decided 1862 was right after our Civil War. And so really we were still a war-torn nation. And part of the healing process, as well as just looking forward to how do we develop our country, was a secondary school, but more for the general public that also had an agricultural focus. And so with that, each state was given the form of land to develop this university. And so this is actually a picture that potentially was around that era. In the background of that picture is, oops, sorry, wrong button. The Knoxville campus, which essentially almost every square inch of this is probably developed now, as Bruno can attest. And so with that, though, the land grant mission is not just kind of teaching and research, but also this extension branch. And really that evolved in the land grant system to have that mission, to accomplish that mission. It developed into a system that then incorporated the agricultural research centers that we call Ag Research and Education Centers now, as well as cooperative extension. And so today there's actually over 105 land grant universities within the U.S., including even like tribal land grant universities that we have. The majority of states have 2 land grant universities in each state. And so Tennessee State University is our other land grant institute in Tennessee. And so the research and education side of things, again, I use this slide to encourage my students to be involved in understanding our government and politics, because these acts that created something that was so instrumental, these things still happen today. Acts are still passed that have such impact as these. And so it's important to understand this and understand the history of these and now the impact it's had. And so the Hatch Act of 1887 essentially created what I would say is the first outdoor classrooms. So the land grant was created, but they kind of knew they had this disconnect where they needed to demonstrate what they were doing closer to their clientele. And then even more so, the Smith-Lever Act of 1914 said, you know, we almost need a middleman. We need someone living in these communities with the people we want to have an impact on. And so that created the cooperative extension and essentially county agents. And I would say Tennessee is, if not the strongest, one of the strongest states in the United States for extension still. Because, you know, since it's a long time ago, since then there has been cuts to budgets for these programs. And each state then has to decide how to manage those budget cuts and keep programs going. And Tennessee has been one of those that has done a very good job in continuing both the research and education centers as well as extension. And so I should point out, the backdrop here in this image is an aerial shot of West Tennessee Research and Education Center. And so while I am a professor with the University of Tennessee that's in Knoxville, I'm actually at a research and education center because that's the majority of where the crops are. And I have a very applied appointment. And so as you can see in the background, all the smaller plot areas, as well as there will be production fields. And then there's actually a good bit of forestry too. And I'll show a little bit more of where West Tennessee Research and Education Center is. So I might have, there it goes, it is going. So it kind of zooms in to where we are in the state of Tennessee. So we're all the way over to the west. And so this is the main building of the station I am at. And so some information on it. For one, outlined in white. I am so sorry, I keep hitting the wrong button. So outlined in white is the boundaries of the station. So we're very unique in that we are right on the edge of the metropolis, the downtown of Jackson, Tennessee. It's not a very huge city by any means, but we have a lot of industry, a lot of textile and manufacturing plants. And then with that too, though, we also, this is actually a river right here that borders us. And where this used to all be agricultural or row crop, every year was a toss of a coin whether we would get flooded or not. And so about 40 years ago, they decided to put this into forestry. And so there's actually different forestry projects that go on there. As well as then currently there's going to be a stream mitigation project. So this is kind of just a canal right here that runs here. And that we actually, I believe it's with maybe the Corps of Engineers that are coming in, and they're actually going to do some of what they did even in Florida, where initially they took something and they had it straight and they realized, no, it needs to be under, we need it to have those curves in it. And so they're going to come and do a project there too. And so the overall station is about 261 hectares. About half of that is in row crop production. So soybean, corn, cotton, and wheat, with what we call just a splash of specialty crops. We have 112 acres of the forestry land that I mentioned, 4 hectares, I'm sorry, of ornamentals and an arboretum, and 2 hectares of turf grass. And so it is really nice that right around the actual main building is one of the 3 certified arboretums and gardens of the state. And so with that, we actually get a lot of the public that come to the station for our gardens, but then we also try to teach them about agriculture at the same time. And so again, we are in the middle of the Madison County, but again, right on the edge of the city limits. And so to give you a rundown of the entire state, so where you see yellow are our 10 research and education centers. And so we have the eastern region, the central region, and the western region. And so again, I'm in Jackson, Tennessee. And then, so this is I-40, runs through Nashville to get all the way over here to main campus of Knoxville. It's about a 5-hour drive, less than that if you can drive fast and you don't hit traffic. And so with that, we also have our 95 counties. And so again, divided into 3 regions. Each county has its own agricultural agent, agricultural natural resource agent, as well as a family consumer science agent and a 4-H agent. And so again, a lot of people over, I mean, really in extension alone, I believe it's at least 700 that are employed. And so with that, again, that communication between those living there, the research and what we're doing in the university and how that relates back to the general public. And so some of our acreage, if you will, we have the majority of our hectares of our plantings on average is all in western Tennessee, some in central, and then the numbers you can say very much drop in eastern Tennessee with our totals on the right side. And the reason for that is our topography. And so we are a very long state, east to west. With the biggest thing though is here in the eastern part of the state is where the Appalachian Mountains are. So where you can farm, it's smaller pieces of land, and you're not going to make money on the large row crops. They're going to be doing more specialty crops.
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. I love to visit, but you can't do big row crops there. And then in central Tennessee, you still have more rolling hills, more landscape that lends itself to more cattle production. And really our largest industry there is horticulture. A lot of ornamentals, nurseries are here in Middle Tennessee or Central Tennessee. And then you get to the western part of the state, which is relatively flat. It's actually still probably the hilliest area in the US that you will find row crops in, because it's not exactly the delta. So just kind of right here, this is the Mississippi River that borders us. And we do have what we call like the drop off, and then you hit what's called the delta, which is very, very, very flat, where it's just as far as the eye can see. And that, thank you. I lost my voice last week. It's actually a lot better than it was last week. And so with that, one of the things we are known for in West Tennessee is the home of creating no-till and promoting it in the U.S. And so the Milan No-Till Research, or the Milan Research and Education Center, that's just about 45 minutes north of Jackson. I do a lot of my research there. We do a big field day every year that still promotes no-till, as well as all the other research we're doing. And so to highlight some of the programs we have at my station. So again, you know, at the university, we have all the major departments, many great professors, but what's unique kind of for me and my relationship with the university too is that I'm at this research center where we do have cross disciplines all down the same hall. And so again, we're one of 10 research and education centers. We're actually the oldest of those 10 research and education centers, established in 1907. Our building was actually built in 1989, but they've done a really good job keeping it up. We recently just had renovations done. We recently just built a duplex with 8 new rooms for housing on station, and that brings us up to a total of 6 houses on station to help house faculty as needed temporarily, as well as students and staff and visiting scientists. So we have multiple units, like I said, so we have about 10 faculty from plant sciences, entomology, and plant pathology, and then our biosystems, engineering, and soil science. The other unique thing we have at the center is we're the home to the USDA ARS scientists that are focused on soybean research. So usually there's 3 different scientists there, a nematologist, a plant pathologist, and a breeder. Right now, we only have a nematologist due to a retirement in the other 2 positions, but hopefully they will be getting refilled. Not very quickly, but they will be getting refilled. The other unique thing about where we are at, we are also the house for the Western Region Extension offices and the Institute of Public Services. And so in general, we actually have 65 full-time employees. At any given point in the year, we might have over really 40 part-time employees that are including mainly students and whether it's graduate students and undergraduate workers in the summertime. And again, a lot of our research is centered around our students, what projects they're doing, or what projects we have that they can be incorporated into. And also, all the research we do on station, we have equipment at the station, so small plot equipment, planters, sprayers, as well as combines to conduct the trial work from start to finish. And then certain programs like my own have our own equipment within the program where we also do on-farm trial work too. Sometimes from start to finish, we'll handle all of it, or sometimes it'll be in collaboration with the grower. And so focusing in on our faculty there, we have crop physiology. So Dr. Avat Shakufa, she focuses on drought tolerance across soybean, corn, cotton. And so we have rainout shelters, we have vapor pressure deficient chambers she uses, as well as 2 very relatively new 5-year-old greenhouses, and then 1 brand new greenhouse that's not even a year old yet, that she will conduct research in. And again, trying to understand transpiration rates, the best way to phenotype for drought tolerance without losing yield. And then we have the agronomy unit. So we have 3 agronomists at our station. 1 that's cotton and wheat, or cotton and small grains, and then a soybean and corn agronomist, and then a systems agronomist. And so they each take their own angles for different investigations of agronomic things, and also a lot of partnering. So like right now, going forward in the coming year, the soybean agronomist and I are looking at different planting dates, different maturity groups of soybean, and understanding, because currently our window for planting, we seem to get a little bit earlier each season in the spring, so we can plant earlier. And with that, the farmers and the growers are pushing earlier planting dates. But with that, they call me up and want to know if they need to put a fungicide out for a disease. And most of the time now, they're escaping disease before it actually develops in the field. And so we're going to be looking at different maturity groups and planting dates to essentially, test the hypothesis that in my mind, if they plant in May, they're likely going to benefit from a fungicide. But if they plant before that, they won't. And if they plant after that, we only have 1 double crop system in our state, which is wheat, which is winter wheat. It's planted in the fall, harvested in the spring, and then in the spring they plant, or the summer really, and then that's when they plant soybeans after that. And so even though the soybeans are in the field when we have the highest inoculum level, because they're responding to the shorter day length already, they're kind of racing through time, and again, the disease doesn't have as much time to rob yield. Soil science, so of course fertility, efficacy, as well as a lot of work on looking at urea loss, essentially. What are some of the different products on the market that can help stabilize some of our fertility, where we don't lose it, as well as, of course, timing for fertility. And then, of course, integrated pest management. So that's our weed scientists, our entomologists, and myself as a pathologist. And so a lot of times, again, we're focused on what are the best strategies to manage these pests in the field. And so specifically, some of the things my program looks at, right? So the goal of my program is providing disease management knowledge in soybean, corn, cotton, and wheat. But this is through teaching and extension programs, and they feed back into each other. So when I talk to my producers or my county agents like Jake, I'm wanting to not only provide the information I've gained from the research I've done, but I'm asking the question, what have I not answered? What problems do you all have that I need to be investigating? And then that feeds back into the research and goes back around. And so particularly, I have a lot of state projects that also then sometimes are regional and national levels, and then hopefully soon, more international projects as well. Some of the main focus areas, fungicide efficacy, right? And so that's looking at both foliar applied fungicides and seed treatments, a little bit in furrow, but the majority of our producers have taken that equipment off their planters once seed treatments became widely adopted. But every now and then there are some interested in adding that back in, usually for fertility purposes. But now the option of maybe putting something back in furrow is there too. Of course, fungicide resistance is a big thing, not just understanding its mechanisms, but is it here to stay? How can we shift population back if we can? And really hopefully avoiding that resistance development to the newer products that are coming on the market. And then cross-host pathogenicity in particular too. This is where a lot of the projects I do, they sometimes have a diagnostics component, but when they do, we also are collecting isolates and then storing those isolates. And a lot of times my program never even does anything directly with that isolate collection, but we give it to other cooperators either inside or outside of the state to further analyze the population and understand its pathogenicity, not just to the host crop it came off of, but to other crops it might rotate to. So particularly, I have a master's student working on Pythium species that came off of cotton, but we also want to know what is its pathogenicity potential on other crops that it's regularly rotated to, like soybean and corn. So epidemiology has always been something I've always been interested in and have tried to focus in on when I can, and kind of now using new AI tools. Since I started my career, I've always been able to amass a lot of data over the years, but it's been so much, it's hard to analyze and even know where to start. And so really just the coming years, some of my students, so my recent PhD student who just defended, Dr. Elias Ukele, he was my very first undergraduate intern from Brazil. He did some conventional modeling with a 7-year data set and then even a 10-year data set. From different trial work that we've amassed over the years. And so with that, we're also looking to see how we can use AI and machine learning to learn from that data and hopefully build models and pull in weather data to better forecast disease and help our management strategies out. So spore traps is another one I'll expand on a little bit too. And I guess always that host interactions. So even when I'm doing some of my fungicide efficacy trials, it's usually hopefully in tangent in a sense with different cultivar background resistance to see if there's different pairings of both the host resistance as well as the chemical strategies we have. And then of course cross-disciplinary investigations. So in particular, it usually always comes out just very organically with the group we have there in West Tennessee, talking about different issues that we usually hear from the county agents or from growers. So particularly in cotton, we were worried that with the increase in the resistant weeds we were seeing, they were going with much stronger pre and post emergent herbicides. And with that, we were worrying, were we seeing an interaction with the seed treatment, whether it be the insecticide component or the fungicide component, where we were losing stands, and we weren't sure if there was an interaction there. And so that was a master's student project that was completed that really showed they weren't interacting together. It was mainly just if damage was caused by the herbicide that then allowed a pathogen to enter, versus though the insecticide was still actually holding its residual as it usually would. One of the newer ones, BT protein impact on corn ear rots and resulting mycotoxins. And so again, this is one where, because we have corn and cotton in the same region, when the new VIP trait came out, the growers as well as the entomologists did not want to see it in corn. They wanted to keep it in cotton and reduce that selection pressure for resistance to develop in corn earworm. But the companies pushed back and said, well, we need the VIP in corn for mycotoxin. Well, and that's when they kind of turned to the plant pathologists, because entomologists were like, well, we don't know anything about mycotoxins. And so, again, a previous undergrad student that went to she went to Auburn for her master's in entomology and came back to my program for her PhD in plant pathology. She started to investigate this, and so it was very interesting in the field. We did not see consistent results with VIP, but it was very evident that the weather environment of each season was influencing our ear rot and our mycotoxin development, but also the background genetics of the hybrids. And so to eliminate those two, she developed an assay to directly look at that and see what interaction was there. And so now I have a new PhD student that's continuing on with that work. And then lastly, another one just to highlight is the cover crop work. So again, over the last 5 to 7 years, cover crops have gained use in our area. It's anywhere usually from a 5-way to a 7-way mix. So that's usually 2 grass species, 2 legume species, and then a brassica is what's usually making up that mix. And so with that, though, we wanted to look at nematodes, but both pathogenic and beneficial, as well as soil fauna to indicate soil health. And so again, I had a PhD student on that, now following up with a master's student to better understand 1 year at one location's impact, as well as if you do the exact same treatments, but over multiple years, if you see a difference. And so one highlight of a project that I thought might just be a unique example of some of the work I do, even though this is in cotton, it's called the National Predictive Modeling Tool Initiative. So it's a USDA ARS initiative, so it's funded by a federal grant. And then with that, though, the map on your right is showing all the states that are highlighted. And I know it's hard to see, but the stars represent the approximate areas of the trials as well as the number of sites. And so some states run trials more than just that one site. But with this, if you're interested to learn more, agpmt.org is the website for this. Within the overall initiative, there are different crops that are what we call RACs, Research Activity Communities or Committees. And so we have one for cotton, corn, wheat, and the newest one is pulses, so like rapeseed, oil crops. And so the main focus of it is on spore trapping. And so that's where, like, up in the top here, upper right-hand corner, this was actually some older spore trapping work I did within soybean before the initiative actually ever took hold, where I was looking at soybean diseases and seeing if you could trigger a fungicide application based on spore counts. And really what it came down to is you can't use it alone. You still need to use the disease triangle and look at your host and your weather to accurately give yourself a chance to better time your fungicide applications. Then more recently with the initiative, this is a whole suite of different air samplers that we were testing to better determine what might be the best one to capture spores. And so of course they're analyzed molecularly. And so what was really interesting with this is, not only are we gleaning information that feeds into epidemiology and then potentially disease management, but with that, during this time period, we kind of have this new re-emerging disease in cotton, areola mildew, and it's a Ramulariopsis species. And so there's actually 2 different species that causes it. And really, previously in 1850 was the first report of the disease out of Alabama. But then it was Giuseppii though. And then no one really ever said anything about it again in the literature. No one really even talked about it when they were talking about disease management. And then all of a sudden in 2018, my colleagues to the south started talking about it more. Started saying, we're seeing issues with this. It's causing yield loss that we've never seen before. And so as it turns out, you all actually discovered and reported on this new species of Remulariopsis pseudoglycans that causes this disease in cotton before we even realized, ooh, this is what's going on with us. And so it's been interesting, of course, the challenge is, of course, the original primer and probe set we were using from our spore traps to quantify doesn't differentiate between the 2 species, which can be good and bad. But essentially, so additional work has gone on to better understand which of the 2 species we have and what does that mean for our management, right? The other unique thing is, again, while this is a focus on spore traps and foliar diseases, within the cotton group, we rolled in seedling diseases too. Particularly for us in cotton, really soil-borne pathogens are more important, cause more yield loss than our above-ground ones. And so with this, it was a unique combining of not just federal resources, but also our National Cotton Council supported, so our checkoff, as well as then industry. Because each year, this program, it combines all 3. For one, the fungicide seed treatments we are investigating are nominated by companies each year, and so they pay a fee to put in their nomination. But then with that, we always have 4 standard controls that also go out in the trial, again, across all these states, the Cotton Belt. And so then with that, we have our 4 standards that we have had now since 1940 in this trial that have been going on. But then with that, we have efficacy data of the newest seed treatments coming on the market too, to compare it to. And so while that's great to have all that efficacy data, on top of that, I'm the lead of this program where 30 days, and then more recently also 15 days after planting, they take up seedlings from the true non-treated check and they ship them overnight on ice to my lab, where then we isolate with selective media our 4 main pathogens, seedling pathogens, from cotton seedlings. And so again, that goes back to some of those isolate collections I have that have more than enough going on. I actually don't do anything with them, but it would be a waste not to start collecting isolates. And so we do that. And so also in the last 3 years, we've paired up with a colleague at University of Auburn, where those same samples are then split and sent there to then be analyzed molecularly. So in plant pathology, hopefully you recognize the importance of not just the new molecular tools to identify pathogens, but that we still need to have the conventional understanding of what these pathogens look like when you go to isolate them. And what's nice about this data set is we're going to see the differences between kind of the 2 different techniques, which you would expect. If you're doing DNA extraction and identifying, especially if you're around the soil at all, you might be picking something up that's there, but it's already dead, right? Because you're still just amplifying the leftover DNA. Versus when we're isolating, we're still actually pulling off what's still viable and living. And so with that, we hit on a lot of points with this where we're giving efficacy data back on an annual basis to our growers, but then we're also feeding in bigger research projects and answering bigger long-term questions. And then also, of course, the idea too is hopefully to build in a forecast model to better understand seedling diseases and the risks for our growers when they're trying to plant versus not. And it's what we call additional overtreatment. All cottonseed comes with a base fungicide seed treatment. But what companies promote and that growers have to decide on is, do I want an overtreatment? Do I really want to beef it up, and do I need to? And so again, we're hoping our data set can let them know, well, if you're really pushing the envelope in this situation and here's your forecast, you have a 70% chance of needing to put another additional fungicide on your seed to protect it. And so with that too, again, looking at I've talked about I've tried to focus on the research side of things, if you will, but really the direct impact of my research on current agricultural practices is through my extension arm. And so I do actually have like a three-way split where my majority of my appointment is extension and then research, and then I have a little bit of teaching. And so with that, you know, what we do is I publish extension publications, right? Results from the research papers we publish, or even before we usually publish the research papers, we turn it into a fact sheet or an extension publication that you can hand out to a grower that makes sense directly to them. But more importantly, what we've developed over the years too is utcrops.com, right? To again, you might only see the grower once or twice, or me, I only see the grower once or twice a year to maybe physically hand them something, which they still like. But everybody, of course, has a phone now. They're in the field. They see a problem. They want to identify what's going on. And so with that, our home site, utcrops.com, has then also expanded to additional suites and apps, if you will. They're websites, but they function as an app. You can download it and put a tag on your phone, but you do still need Wi-Fi or signal to run it. But we always say, like, news.utcrops.com, that's our blog site. Again, sometimes we just need to push information out immediately to say, hey, you need to be scouting for fusarium headlight in your field, or looking at your forecast to determine if you need to protect for it. That entomologist will put out monthly or weekly moth traps if a certain area all of a sudden had a big catch of moth flights, to let their growers know, right? Our weed scientists will recommend different spray downs or herbicide burn down timings for different herbicides coming up based on his research and what he's also hearing, right? Our guide.utcrops.com, it's mobile friendly, but like a quick reference is, I see some spots on my leaves, my soybean leaves, what are they? Well, they can go to there, try to look at some of our images and short descriptions to figure out what's going on there, as well as insect identification is there also. And then search.utcrops.com is our variety database, if you will. So again, we screen across the university multiple cultivars, hybrids in our major row crops, and put the information there, and are trying to develop a more searchable, friendly format for them also. And really the biggest thing is collaborations with our county agricultural agents. So again, in each one of our 95 counties, we have an agricultural county agent that we work with. So they actually plan a county production meeting in our winter months when our producers are not in the field. And then they invite the specialists, professors like myself, to come speak at them, as well as grain conferences and then field days during the day, as well as during the season, as well as farm visits, of course. And so with that, I'm going to segue into Jake Mallard to discuss kind of his role, his county of Gibson County. And so I remember to do that. So again, Gibson County, I just colored it in here on the map, is where Jake is stationed. He's going to talk a little bit about that.
Thank you. All right, so just give you a little background on me coming into Extension. So I started in Extension in 2006 as a 4-H agent, a youth development agent. And so what that is I've got 2 youth development agents in my office. They go out to the schools and they teach agriculture and healthy living lifestyles to the kids in the schools, in the public school system. We also have a couple of homeschool groups that come into our office and they teach them in our office. And then we have family and consumer science. My family and consumer science agent, she has a program assistant in my office with her. She teaches how to can food properly, how to prepare food properly. She does a lot of senior living, senior well living, exercising for seniors, getting up and moving, not getting stale and sitting around the house and thinking that, hey, I'm old now, I can't get up and move. She gets them up and gets them moving. She does yoga with them in chairs. It's pretty fun. She's got like these noodles that she takes these balls and 5-gallon buckets and they drum with noodles on the balls. And it gets them moving and they have a really fun time. I go to some of her classes just to watch the entertainment of what's going on in that. And then I have we have an agribility agent in our office. She's a specialist. She helps disabled farmers adapt. So if you've got a producer that is missing a leg and they can't get in their combine, she's gotten a lift for them to put on the combine so they can stand on it and it'll automatically lift them up into the combine. She works all of West Tennessee and half of Middle Tennessee doing that work. So she's busy all the time working with different farmers with different needs. And then I have a managed specialist in there. And what she does is she helps farmers with budgets and farm plans. So if they're going to go to the USDA and take out a loan on a new farm, they're going to ask for a farm plan to make sure that they're making viable decisions on the money that they're going to loan them out to their operation. And so she'll sit down and go over the budget. I have several farmers that every year they'll call and want to set up a meeting with her, and they'll just go over their budget for the year to make sure that they're not going to lose money, even in the worst situations. This past year was a really tough year, and coming into 2026 right now, it's not looking like it's going to be any better than 2025. I know I was talking to one of the young men here earlier today, and he's like, "Well, I heard y'all had a good crop year." I'm like, "Where?" Like, this is probably one of the worst years in my 20-year term with extension that I can remember as far as yield wise. We got rain. It started raining. It feels like it started raining in January, and it didn't stop raining until about the third week in July. But when it stopped, it stopped. I didn't catch a drop of rain in my house for 62 days, right in the middle of the time that your soybean plants are setting pods, your corn is filling ears, your cotton plants are setting bolls. And so when Mother Nature turns off the rainfall, that's one of the most important nutrients we've got that she gives us. So that's just a little bit of background about me. This is Gibson County. This is the topography of it. So all the red you see there, that is our hay and pasture grounds. The yellow is cultivated crops, your row crops, your big crops. The green is forest. Everywhere you see forest on there, that's a river. We don't have forest. That's a river. And so we can't harvest timber in the river bottoms because you can't get in there because they're swampy. You'll go down in mud up to your chest. There's no bottom to it. It's just empty. And then your gray, you've got Humboldt right here, Milan right here, Trenton right here, and this little town right here, if that map was updated, would be a lot bigger. It'd be the biggest gray on there. So Madison County, where the West Tennessee Research and Education Center is right down here. Is right below there. And so everybody's moved out of the city and they've moved to the rural area, and they turned all of our cotton ground that was in this area into subdivisions. And so we're dealing with some urban sprawl. That means everybody's moving out of the city and they want to come out to the country. And so when everybody moves out of the city and they want to come out to the country, what happens? They don't know the sounds or the smells that we deal with on a daily basis. Tyson Foods has moved into Gibson County. We've got something around 85 chicken barns just in my county that produce tons and tons and tons of chicken litter, and we use it. It gets spread out on the fields twice a year, and when you spread it, you smell it for about 2 days, and the phone calls start coming in. And guess who gets to deal with that? Me. They'll even call my county mayor, and guess who he tells them to call? Me. So that is my county. That's what it looks like, just from a crops area. Corn in Gibson County, and Heather's turned them into hectare acres. Look at it. 36,100 hectares of corn, which is 35% of it. There was 103, almost 104,000 hectare acres planted just in my county alone. The total expense per hectare acre of corn, $2,000. It's a lot of money. We're number 3 in the state of Tennessee for corn growing. around 8 million bushels is what we pull out of our county every year. There's one of our plots that's on one of the farms I work closely with. That's on a green, it's called Green Acres. Y'all probably heard the song Green Acres is a place to be. It's a TV show way back in the 70s, in the early 80s. But he also, when he took over the operation, they had a dairy there. And we had something along like 20 dairies in my county back in the 70s and early 80s. We're down to 2 now. So when the dairy business started going down, he had to figure something else out to make a living. So he started bringing in beef cows and he started doing row crops. Well, he still wasn't making enough money. So we had to figure out something different. So we started growing strawberries on plasticulture. He grows about 15 acres of strawberries every year. And so after the strawberry production in the spring is over, he goes ahead and preps the beds and he grows pumpkins. And then a couple of years went down the road of him selling off the roadside because there's a main highway that runs right by his farm. And so a couple of years went down and he started doing agritourism. And so he's built all these different activities for kids to go do. He charges like $10, $15, $20. I can't remember how much he charges to get in, but once the kids get in, they can go do whatever. This winter, he's planted tulips, and then he'll charge people to come take pictures with his tulips. And then in the fall, he'll have some sunflowers out there that people can go cut the sunflowers, take them home. He's done a really good job of marketing his farm and getting people in to understand agriculture. This last year with strawberries, we had a new disease come in. It come in from the nurseries where we get the plugs to plant. It's called NEOP, and we really can't control it. We're still working on it. It'll take the plant, and the plant will just wilt and die within a couple of weeks. And we lost about an acre last year due to that disease. So we're still trying to figure stuff out. Soybeans is 41% of what we plant in Gibson County, 42,000 hectares. Total expense $1,400 a hectare. Roughly 5,500,000 bushels of soybeans are produced in Gibson County. Cotton, 8,453 hectares, 8%. We're number 5 in the state for that. Total expenses $2,300. Pretty expensive to plant cotton. I feel like our cotton acres are going to go down this year, even further than what they went down last year, simply because they didn't make much money, and you can't risk a whole lot and go out there to plant that. Wheat, we're number 1 in the state. This is one of my wheat plots. You can see I leave a skip in between plots. Y'all know why I do that? So we can get the snout of the combine in there. Because I'm actually using their combines that they use on the farm. They'll run down through there, combine that plot. We'll have a weigh wagon sitting on each side. He'll dump in there. We'll take a measurement of the weight, take a grain sample, get the test weight and the moisture off of that, and document it. And then once it's all done, we fill out these spreadsheets. We email them in to our CST coordinator. CST stands for County Standardized Testing or Trials. If you get on UT Crops, you can pull up all of our data for as long as we've done it. They were doing CSTs when I started in 2006. So we just continued the tradition. We plant, that's roughly 30 hybrids of corn. Soybeans, it's somewhere in the range of probably 40 to 50 varieties. Cotton's about 18 varieties. Wheat's about 18 varieties. We do have 2 different trait packages that they use in my county, which is never a good thing. So there's some enlist or dicamba traits, or there's dicamba and then there's enlist. Those 2 herbicides don't get along very well. There's drift issues just about every year. I get called out on them. Most of the time, it's not devastating to the crops. It just sets them back. Sometimes in soybeans, I've noticed soybeans can recover. They look pretty ugly for a little bit, and then they jump out and they do just fine. We do have some issues with right-of-way spraying, people spraying the highway edges to keep the grasses down, because that's what they do in our county. They hire a company to come in to spray to keep the grass down. And what happens? They're using the wrong herbicide and it drifts out in the field to the areas. We have cattle, goats, hogs, sheep, but the goats and the sheep have just jumped and started getting pretty big numbers here in the last 5 years. But the cattle numbers have stayed about the same, about 13,000 head of cattle, 200 milk cows. Like I said, I've only got 2 dairies in the county now, and about 4,000 acres of forage that we've got, or hectares that we've got in the county. So a little bit more about what I do. Most of y'all, agriculture and natural resources. Y'all know how big that umbrella is? Everything fits underneath there. So I get calls on agriculture, on row crops, on livestock, on forages, but I also get calls on wildlife. Wildlife's damaging houses or property. I get calls on horticulture, diseases, insect issues, turf grass. I get called out on the golf courses. I get called to hunting clubs to figure out why their corn won't grow, because they're trying to kill a bunch of ducks over corn. You name it, I get called out to do it. We get called out to educate some of the people that have livestock that maybe they had a good job 2 years ago when they bought all these animals, and they lost that job and they lost that income stream, and they don't have enough money to feed and take care of those animals. So I have to go out and educate these people on the proper techniques of animal husbandry, which is handling your animals, making sure they got food, water, and shelter. We want to keep these inside the fence. We don't want them roaming to our neighbors' yards. We get called out on everything. Chicken litter is a big phone call that I get every year when they're spreading it in the spring and fall, because the residents that have moved out of the country, they don't like the smell. But they've got to understand they moved into that area. And so that's part of what coming into the country means, is you're going to get country sounds and you're going to get country smells. And sometimes they're not always nice. Y'all got any questions for me, or we're going to do questions at the end?
Questions?
Well, we still have Lucas to go, and I know it's getting late, so if it's all right, I might say he can present in Portuguese. Is that all right?
Oh,
He's good on that too, trust me, he's fine on that. But I let him prepare that in Portuguese too, just so you could follow too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll let Lucas take it away.
The presentation is more for students, so I think it would be easier if I present in Portuguese, but they can present in English as well. Eu vou me apresentar um pouco, falar como foi minha rotina como estagiário e depois como estudante lá nos Estados Unidos. Eu sou formado em agronomia na Universidade de Passo Fundo, na UFLA, e durante minha graduação fiz estágio em alguns lugares, como na Embrapa Trigo, eu trabalhei na empresa da minha família, trabalhei com consultoria, e no último semestre da faculdade, eu não sei se é assim aqui também, acredito que seja, precisava fazer o estágio final. E um estudante que fazia PhD, o Elias Zuchelli, que andava para tempo muito antes, entrou em contato comigo e com ela, me apresentou nós dois, para ver se eu tinha interesse para fazer o estágio final lá. Aceitei com certeza. Fui para lá. Aí eu fui na época de safra, era mais ou menos uns 5 meses, que é durante o plantio, até, não cheguei a pegar a colheita, mas foi quase. Aí foi a minha primeira experiência com o exterior. Quando eu fui para lá, o inglês não era lá dos bons, mas trabalhando no dia a dia eu consegui aprender muito e acabar me virando. Então, como o Dr. Kelly falou antes, o campus principal fica em Oxford e onde eu moro e trabalho, e também meu projeto, fica em Jackson, que é no campus experimental do West Tennessee. Como ela falou também, existem 10 campos de pesquisa ao redor do estado, cada um focado em uma área diferente. Então, tem a área de field crop, tem a área de bovinocultura, silvicultura. No caso, o nosso é field crop, a gente trabalha com soybean, cotton, wheat, corn. O clima de lá é bem maluco. É clima subtropical, então tem as estações do ano bem definidas. Então, lá é quente o suficiente para plantar algodão, mas também é frio o suficiente para plantar trigo de inverno. Tanto é que é um pouco diferente do trigo daqui. O trigo daqui é trigo primaveril e lá o inverno é mais resistente ao frio. Tanto é que a gente planta em torno de novembro, quando começa o inverno. O trigo sobrevive todo o inverno embaixo da neve, existe uma boa, e ali por maio, por ali a gente começa a colher. Então, a gente trabalha nas 3 principais áreas, laboratório, casa de vegetação e campo. No laboratório, como a Dr. Gerd falou antes, a gente recebe muitas amostras de vários estados do país, e a gente analisa elas no nosso laboratório. Então, tem amostras de seedling, de plântula de algodão, e também amostras de solo para fazer análise de laboratório. Também, dependendo do projeto que os estudantes tiver, eles fazem todo o projeto no laboratório. A gente também tem uma casa de vegetação que nos dá uma flexibilidade muito grande para nós fazer os nossos projetos. Tanto é que já teve muitas vezes que estava trabalhando lá de manga curta e estava nevando lá fora. Então, a gente pode fazer experimentos de dia, de noite, no verão, no inverno. Isso nos dá um leque muito grande para trabalho. E também o campo, que é a principal área. A gente tem bastante trials, bastante experimentos. E um pouco do que nos ajuda muito é que a gente tem uma caminhonete até forte, uma F350, que nela a gente consegue carregar o trator, a plantadeira, ou a colheitadeira, ou o pulverizador. Então, com isso, a gente consegue ter experimentos em vários locais diferentes. A gente sabe que tem mais incidência de nematóide em tal lugar. A gente consegue colocar nosso experimento naquele lugar. E a gente tem bastante flexibilidade. A gente consegue levar todo o nosso maquinário para aquele lugar. E também, quando a gente precisa aplicar, a gente leva todos os tratamentos numa carretinha, consegue misturar tudo lá e fazer as aplicações. Não leva 30 minutos para fazer um experimento grande. A gente também faz bastante avaliação de doenças, de incidência, estabilidade. Na verdade, é o que mais a gente faz. Tem dias no verão que a gente passa o dia inteiro avaliando doença, semana inteira, na verdade. E também, quando a gente tem que avaliar o milho já está alto e a gente quer fazer uma avaliação de cima, a Dr. Kelly e outro estudante vai na carona do pulverizador, vai alguém dirigindo, ela vai lá atrás, e ela vai avaliar em cima do pulverizador para ver as doenças do milho. Isso também nos traz muita eficiência. Também a gente tem coletores de esporo para ver como está a incidência de esporos durante o verão. Nosso programa é 65% extensão, 30% pesquisa e 5% teaching. Então, por ser a maioria extensão, a gente tem muitos dias de campus. Por isso, a gente recebe vários produtores, então a gente apresenta nossas parcelas para várias pessoas por bastante tempo. A gente também trabalha com sensoramento remoto de drone. Eu vou falar um pouco mais, que é o que é o que o meu projeto é sobre. E também a gente faz outras atividades que a Dr. nos dá a oportunidade de participar. A gente pode participar de reuniões científicas, também outras atividades não necessariamente relacionadas à fitopatologia. Por exemplo, já fiz transmissão de drone de eventos lá em Spring Hill, que eles trabalham só com gado, não tem nada a ver com fitopatologia. Também ali na estação a gente recebe bastante escolas, que eles trazem as crianças para entender como funciona um pouco da agricultura. A gente também faz bastante apresentação sobre como funciona a nossa pesquisa. E agora eu vou falar um pouco do mestrado. Basicamente, tudo isso aqui que eu falei, eu já fazia como estagiário. Eu fui, primeiramente, como estagiário fazer os 5 meses do estágio final. Mas, quando eu estava lá, eu vi que eu realmente gostava do lugar e eu queria fazer um mestrado. Mas no momento o inglês não era muito forte e eu entrei em contato com a Dr. Kelly que eu queria fazer o mestrado lá. Então eu acabei voltando de novo como estagiário e fiquei mais quase 1 ano como estagiário, mais para pegar o inglês mesmo e a rotina do lugar. Aí depois que eu fiquei mais esse outro ano, aí eu fiquei para fazer o mestrado e comecei a fazer. Então basicamente o que mudou foi que a rotina continuava muito parecida, os trabalhos continuam parecidos, mas aí eu comecei a ter minhas próprias aulas e o meu próprio projeto. Aqui é uma foto do campus de Knoxville. É bem bonito porque o campus meio que mistura com a cidade. Então tem os prédios antigos e a cidade que se desenvolveu em volta. As aulas. As aulas vão depender muito de onde você está. Se você está morando em Knoxville, que é como a grande maioria dos alunos, você vai ter aula presencial. Você vai ter sua sala de aula lá para assistir a aula. Mas, se tu é um estudante que está fazendo o seu projeto em outra estação de pesquisa que não fica em Knoxville, que é como no meu caso, fica em Jackson, eu posso assistir as aulas de forma híbrida. Então, os alunos que estão lá, eles assistem as aulas presenciais, mas por eu estar em Jackson e não conseguir ver as aulas presencialmente, eu assisto de forma remota. Mas isso é algo que eu optei. Tu tem a liberdade de escolher se tu quer morar em Knoxville ou em Jackson. Se teu projeto é mais relacionado ao laboratório, Knoxville funciona. Mas se é mais voltado ao campo, principalmente field crops, ficar viajando de Knoxville para Jackson toda hora, são 5 horas, é puxado. Então é melhor ficar morando em Jackson mesmo. E outra coisa que muda também nas aulas é que eu percebo que tem mais interação entre alunos e professores. Tem muitas vezes que os professores mandam um artigo para a gente ler antes da aula, e a gente, quando chega na aula, a gente discute entre nós sobre aquele artigo. Também tem muitos trabalhos em grupo, muitas apresentações em público. Então, isso é um ponto bacana que eles colocam nas aulas. E agora também o meu projeto. Meu projeto é basicamente em sensoramento remoto, para fazer detecção preventiva de doenças em field crops, mas mais voltado em soja com a doença cercose crosogena, mancha de ramo. A gente tem 3 drones no nosso programa. Um é o Matrice M600 Pro, que é o grandão. Nele a gente tem uma câmera RGB e uma câmera térmica. E a gente tem outros 2 drones. O outro drone, que seria o secundário, outro estudante acabou quebrando ele, a gente teve que aposentar ele um pouco, era o que tinha a câmera multispectral. Pelo drone estar aposentado, a gente mudou a câmera multispectral para esse outro drone, que é o DJI Spire 2. Durante a safra, a gente faz voos semanais, desde o estágio vegetativo até reprodutivo, de alguns experimentos. Além disso, a gente também faz avaliações de doenças, de incidência, de severidade, para ver quais doenças realmente estão ali, porque só com o drone você não consegue dizer. E também a gente faz coletas de folhas, e depois a gente leva para o laboratório, faz escaneamento e consegue ver a severidade real. Então, é mais ou menos uma forma de ter certeza da severidade que está acontecendo. Só que pelo fato de ser muitas folhas, e várias amostras, a gente não consegue fazer de todos os tratamentos. Então, é só uma forma de double check, de certificar o que você está fazendo. Eu vou falar um pouco dos desafios. Não quero notificar ninguém, só quero alertar como funciona. O principal desafio, é o disparado mais difícil, é o idioma. Porque tudo que você vai fazer lá, o nível de dificuldade vai estar relacionado com o teu nível de inglês. E no mercado vai ser difícil se você não sabe inglês. Trabalhar vai ser difícil porque você não sabe inglês. Então, saber inglês é muito importante, sabe? É óbvio que você vai aprendendo dia a dia lá, mas quanto mais você saber antes de ir para lá, melhor. Mais vai ser da tua vida. O ambiente acadêmico é um pouquinho diferente. Você tem muito mais autonomia para decidir o que você vai fazer com o seu projeto ou durante as aulas também. Tem mais interação, como eu falei antes, com o professor. Cultura. Não é um dos piores problemas, porque poderia ser cultura comparando Brasil e Japão, mas não, é Brasil e Estados Unidos, é um pouco parecido. Então a cultura não chega a influenciar tanto, mas vai ter algumas coisas que vai incomodar um pouco. Por exemplo, alimentação lá tem muito industrializado, você tem que acostumar um pouco com a comida, com a rotina lá, por exemplo, almoço, o pessoal faz mais um lanche, um sanduíche pequeno, então você tem que comer mais no café da manhã do que no almoço, para não ficar com fome e tal. Mas são coisas básicas. Logística do dia a dia. Moradia. Se tu mora em Norte, você vai ter que procurar um lugar para alugar, mas se tu está morando em uma estação de pesquisa, eles muito provavelmente vão fornecer moradia para você. Transporte. Os Estados Unidos, com exceção de alguns lugares mais turísticos, mais movimentados, ele não é feito para caminhar. Tem lugares que não tem calçada, você vai precisar de um carro, e muitos transportes públicos, que parecem, não são tão bons. Então, ter um meio de locomoção lá, ter um amigo que tem um carro, ter o próprio carro, é bem importante. E documentação e burocracia, isso é chato pra caramba, porque só em visto tem muita coisa. Aí você chega lá, daí tem também carteira de motorista, aí tem que tirar a carteira de drone, aí você tem que entender como funciona o imposto de lá. Então, essa parte papelada é uma das mais chatas, mas isso aí sempre se aprende, supera. E aprendizados, que é o principal. Crescimento acadêmico. Lá você vai conhecer novas metodologias, novas tecnologias, você vai ter contato com mais pessoas, com pessoas internacionais. Experiência internacional, Estados Unidos vem muita gente de fora. O país em si ele foi criado por imigrantes também. Então, tem muitas culturas diferentes. Então, todo dia você vai ter um contato com alguém de outro país. Não necessariamente que a família veio, daí a pessoa nasceu lá. Mas não, a pessoa que vem diretamente do outro país mesmo, que tem a cultura fresca ali, para você entender como funciona. Desenvolvimento pessoal e profissional, que quando você vai para outro país e você está sozinho lá, você tem que aprender a se virar com tudo diferente. Acho que isso vai se desenvolver muito. Você vai aprender na marra como funciona, mas vai ser ótimo, porque você tem aquele sentimento que você consegue morar em qualquer lugar depois disso. Idioma, que, como eu falei, idioma é muito importante saber. Depois que você sabe o inglês, abre muitas oportunidades para você. Você consegue se comunicar com basicamente o mundo inteiro, porque o mundo inteiro fala inglês, querendo ou não. E se eu quiser passar uma mensagem mais importante, que é que se vocês tiverem a oportunidade de ir para fora algum dia, independente do lugar, vão. Porque depois que você tem a experiência de viver em outro país, sua cabeça abre muito. Você vê o mundo de uma visão muito diferente. Você não é mais uma pessoa, sabe? No bom sentido. Então, se vocês tiverem a oportunidade de ir, pode ser no fim do mundo lá, vão, porque vai valer a pena.
Really, just to summarize, again, in brief, University of Tennessee, the Land Grant University, those different components that have come together. The extension side with Jake, the teaching side, and also getting some of the research done with students like Lucas. Our slogan at University of Tennessee is real life solutions. Some things I'm right. And then I think I'm gonna hit the button one more time just to show our contact information and my 3 kids. That was actually a year ago, but mainly the pictures I took when we didn't get to come, it was so much colder, you didn't see anyone's faces because you didn't want your skin exposed at all. But that same hill was covered in snow and then ice. And unfortunately, since I just got on the Wi-Fi, my husband let me know we have a water leak that's flooded our bathroom, unfortunately. The pipes have froze. And I feel bad for him, but I'm kind of glad I'm not having to deal with that right now. But I am really excited that we get to come on this trip to meet you all, to hopefully continue this communication and build collaboration. And of course, we are happy to host you in Tennessee. So hopefully the things I tried to illustrate here on the presentation, you could come and see for yourselves also. So yeah, I'd be happy to take any questions or anything like that. But again, just reach out to any of us if you'd like to further ask questions or discuss things or anything.
Thank you very much.
And Bruno's here too. I feel bad. I didn't say
Small souvenir from Lawrence.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there any questions online?
Yeah, so far I haven't checked. I haven't checked, but I think there are questions. So I think it was a very good perspective. So it's we received many visitors, but it's the first time that I saw the global picture of the extension service at the university. And it's good that it was a good extension service, so we really have the real picture of how it works, because we do have the extension service in Mapet, but it's disconnected from the university. So we do research, we apply research, but we don't connect directly to the extension service, so it's not as effective. So it's a good model to be replicated. It's so I share the link, so some colleagues from Salvador they saw, because the idea is to have more than growers association to make this link and eventually to have the government to really rethink the model of the extension, because we are expected to be 1/3 appointment of extension, but we do not comply with that. So we try to do our best with the student clubs, but it's not the same. So questions to our colleagues? Everything was clear.
You're hungry, tired.
Yeah. So just a quick question. So in terms of service, so when the grower wants to do it, so he did planted and he wants to check which fungi you have in terms of blotter test or specific test in terms of climate. You also offer this kind of test, or the university takes care of
Well,
this
so
kind of.
it varies. So depending on where you are in the state, so the majority of the questions would come in from the western part of the state where I'm at. And really the first person they usually talk to the grower would be the county agent. So annually we do trainings with the agents. He's done plenty of them, as well as then in the season in the field we'll train them. So a lot of times they on their own can hopefully identify what's going on without even actually having to run it through the lab. Versus if they really are just like, I'm not sure, they'll call me. And if I can't just diagnose it through a picture or talking through it, then we'll just go to the field in person, or they might get us a sample. And then from there, for me, we usually do some planing of it to actually grow it out to identify it. But we also have a diagnostics lab. It's just in East Tennessee. And so again, it just depends. More so, I feel like horticultural crops, nursery crops, the ornamentals, A lot of them will take samples directly sent to our diagnostician, who then does tests like that. That does cost a fee of $15. So similar here. Oh, it's 30 now. So it actually makes sense. I'll take mine. Yeah. And so with that, and then the newer thing we are doing that's actually, I believe, still free is distant diagnostics. So again, they can submit a picture to the diagnostic center, and if it's a good enough picture and there's good enough information with it, again, we can sometimes diagnose it that way. It just depends on how good the picture is and the information they provide. But a lot of times, it was really just grandfathered in so far that the specialists that are in the area of the crops, the row crops, are expected to be trained and be able to be kind of diagnosticians ourselves, to just go ahead and get it done. And so I know, again, in other institutes in other states where the focus is shifted away from that, they do have to rely much more heavily on their diagnostic services and their diagnostics plan. And we still have a great clinic, and we still love it, but for field crops, hence the reason we're not on this campus.
Okay, great. Any other question?
Tennesse is a beautiful place.
Yeah, it was shy actually, but they asked for something. So they have contact and have connect to us. So we invited Tennesse going to present also. So she's part of our is an alumnus from our university, and then she started our company, and then she brought her office to our technology park. So I don't know if you have also the like an incubator for startups. And so that's something that we are boosting and we are promoting. And we can think also of this service to be a way to connect to international companies. So we have a company from Japan that came all the way and decided that so since they work with coffee and beverage and quality and so on, so they decided to come to our technology park. So we have a Japanese company in our campus too. So it's something that could be considered. Also think about startups and spin-off companies that could move around once we have a connection. That's it. So, Fernanda, pode falar em português ou faço a interpretação? She's going to speak in Portuguese. I try to make the translation.
Obrigada, Flávio. Obrigada pelo convite. É muito bom vir contar a história, né, da gente, assim, de tudo que a gente construiu desde lá do início. E eu sempre falo, é muito bom contar que, se você tem um sonho, coloque ele no papel e, assim, você vai ter que gastar energia, né? É uma construção, mas você nunca desiste dele. Porque se você colocar força, vontade, energia, vai dar certo. E com as pessoas certas do seu lado, né? Então...
So English completely so that I can translate. So she shares that it's very good to come up with your dream and put forward this dream to as the company that she started. So she's going to share.
Você pode?
From the University to Entrepreneurship, building your own company.
Vou falar um pouquinho de quem sou eu, né? Eu sou natural de Lavras, eu sou bióloga. Se eu falo que de bióloga eu não tenho nada. Assim. Eu gostei de lavar mato, mexer com esse negócio de cobra, essas coisas, não era comigo, não. E aí, depois que eu formei biologia, no final eu já vim para a UFLA fazer estágio, que eu precisava formar, né? E a gente precisava de estágio também. Primeiro eu fiz estágio lá na microbiologia com leite, identificação de bactérias, em tanque de expansão de leite. Mal sabia que ia ir caminho para o meio da microbiologia, né? E aí depois eu fiz estágio na EPAMI. Lá eu aprendi muito com os pesquisadores, porque a gente acompanhava vários projetos, e tinha de tudo, né? E aí eu tentei entrar na fitopatologia, mas eu não consegui, gente. Eu tentei 2 vezes, e aí não consegui. E aí, como eu também trabalhava com insetos, eu fui para a entomologia. Então, eu fiz o meu mestrado em identificação da eficiência das plantas da entrelinha do café no manejo biológico. Então, principalmente crisopídeo, né? Então, a gente avaliou se essa presença, principalmente brequiária, fazia atração de inimigos naturais, como, né, os crisopídeos, e se diminuía a infestação, né, das pragas, ácaros, né, bicho mineiro, e realmente dava diferença. Então, se você manejasse de forma adequada, você ia atrair muitos inimigos naturais que iam controlar essas pragas, e com isso você ia reduzir a aplicação de inseticidas. E aí, depois, no doutorado, era para mim ter trabalhado com algodão, mas aí o meu pesquisador, né, o César, né, que já faleceu, ele falou, não, preciso fazer um projeto em rosas. E aí eu mudei totalmente, fui trabalhar com flores, também com foco em controle biológico. Novamente, eu trabalhava com crisopídeo, né, e aí a gente foi avaliar se tinha atratividade por algumas plantas, em manutenção do crisopídeo, porque a gente sabe que o grande desafio, né, ele é muito eficiente na predação, mas ele é difícil de manutenção na área, porque acabou o alimento, ele vai embora. E aí eu avaliei várias plantas, como cravo, manjericão e algumas outras, nessa manutenção. E a gente teve muito sucesso com o manjericão. E aí eu fiz desde o início, desde o laboratório, a casa de vegetação, ao produtor. E aí a gente pegou duas estufas dele, fizemos lado a lado, o químico comparado com o biológico. A produção dele de botões florais foi, assim, estrondosa na área que ele não aplicou químico. Então, foi muito eficiente. Então, colocando vasos de manjericão entre as linhas das roseiras e liberação de crisopídeo. Então, a gente conseguiu produzir mais botões florais com maior qualidade até do que o químico. E aí, nessa época, eu acho que eu já tinha lá no meu fundinho, né, aquela vontade de empreender, e eu olhava e falava assim, gente, aqui na região não tem biofábricas. Não tem ninguém que produz isso. Só que nessa época eu pensava em insetos. Tá, beleza, né? Não tem. Eu venho de família de produtores rurais, então, assim, eu vivi vendo meu pai aplicar inseticida lá em tudo. Eu falava, gente, esse negócio não é bem assim. Eu vi que deu resultado, então eu preciso trazer. E aí eu comecei a estudar o negócio. E aí eu fiquei pensando, e agora, né? Será que eu vou cair nessa loucura? Aí quando eu contei para minha família, se você tá maluca, vai virar professora da UFLA, vai virar pesquisadora, você vai querer abrir empresa, esse negócio vai dar certo. Eu falei, não, eu vou teimar, né? Eu vou teimar e vou continuar com esse plano que eu quero. E aí eu falei, não, eu vou empreender, né? Onde que eu estou me metendo? Eu tinha a ideia e o sonho, mas eu não tinha dinheiro para fazer isso. E aí eu falei, não, vou correr atrás. Isso lá em 2017. Eu defendi meu doutorado, peguei, sentei na bunda da cadeira, como diz, e comecei a estudar o mercado biológico. Isso lá em 2017. Então, eu comecei a estudar, comecei a planejar, né? E aí eu falei, não, beleza, então eu vou pôr isso no papel agora e ver se vai dar certo. Quando eu fui estudar, eu vi que insetos não dava. Eu saí fora. Fiquei. Falei assim, eu não quero trabalhar com orgânico. Meu foco não vai ser esse. Então, eu quero trabalhar no Brasil todo. Como é que eu mando um tricograma, um crisopídeo lá para o Tocantins? Inviável. Você chegar lá e já morreu. E aí eu comecei a estudar, comecei a conversar com pesquisadores, com professores, e vi que a tecnologia dos fungos, das bactérias, né, que é a parte de fisiopatologia dos microbiológicos, era viável. Ou é uma tecnologia que o produtor pode usar, porque ele pode misturar ali no tanque, é muito mais viável para ele colocar no manejo dele. Opa, beleza, achei a ideia que pode ser viável. E comecei a montar um plano de negócio. E aí eu comecei a montar, comecei a estudar e realmente comecei a olhar números. Né? Porque, assim, a empresa precisa de dinheiro para viver. E aí eu fui buscar os caminhos, né? Dediquei mais 2 anos nisso. E aí eu vi que era tecnicamente viável, mas eu não tinha recurso para montar, e eu busquei pessoas para ser parceiros do meu negócio. Então, eu trouxe outras empresas, né, 2 empresas, uma da área de ensino, que é o Reagro, e outra de consultoria, que é a Campeira, que mexe com a parte de sustentabilidade, para serem sócios do Bionip. E aí, eu peguei uma casa e transformei numa startup. Peguei, os quartos eram a sala de crescimento, um outro era o laboratório, onde eu fazia inoculação, e a cozinha era a parte que eu fazia a secagem, era o meu escritório, e a manipulação inicial do arroz. E falei, vou ficar aqui um bom tempo, né? Vou ficar aqui um bom tempo. E aí eu fui me dedicando, fui me especializando. Ninguém abre para você o processo. Você tem lá os artigos científicos que te mostram como é que você faz 5 quilos de arroz. Opa, mas como é que eu vou transformar isso em 1 tonelada? E eu fui erro, acerto, até surgir a Biomip. E aí nasceu a Biomip lá em 2019 e comecei a trabalhar com a parte burocrática. Aí entra a parte chata, documentação. E aí você tem que descobrir, porque ninguém sabe o que você vai fazer. Quando eu fui licenciar na prefeitura daqui da cidade, eles olharam para minha cara e falaram assim, você vai soltar pernilongo aí na cidade? O que você vai fazer? Aí eu fui explicando. Aí teve um dia que eu cheguei lá, tinha 10 pessoas sentadas na mesa, olhando para minha cara, tipo assim, o que você vai fazer? Que nós não entendemos até hoje. Aí fui explicar, eles, nossa, é isso? Não, você não precisa de alvará, você não precisa de nada, não, pode montar. Mas isso já tinha levado 6 meses, até chegar nesse ponto. E aí, o que era o foco da Biomip, né? Você via várias multinacionais aí no mercado, mas o nosso foco era atender o produtor. E com o meu DNA da universidade, eu preciso ensinar ele. Nós já sabemos que lá atrás queimou a tecnologia por não saber usar, então a gente precisava ir por um caminho diferente. E aí o nosso foco é levar mais sustentabilidade para o homem do campo, que ele tenha mais resultado, né? E usando da forma certa, que ele vai ter o resultado que ele espera. E aí a Biomip, então, nasceu em 2019. E em 2020, a gente teve o nosso primeiro registro, que foi o do fungo metarrísio, que é o nosso produto biometa, com foco em controle de cigarrinho das pastagens. E aí a gente iniciou aquele trabalho com venda direta para o cliente. Até hoje, nós não trabalhamos com revendas nem cooperativas. Então, a gente atende o cliente final. Então, quando a gente começou, dá aquele frio na barriga, né? Nossa, será que eu vou entregar o meu produto? Será que vai dar certo? Será que vai matar realmente? Você fica com aquela, né? Mas eu tinha vontade, o sonho e acreditava no que eu estava fazendo. E aí, quando começou a chegar os primeiros feedbacks do cara lá de Rondônia, que nem sabe onde que é a Lavra, ele falou, minha filha, realmente o negócio dá certo? Mata tudo. E eu não preciso tirar meu gado aqui, eu tenho 1 hectare aqui. E aí a gente foi expandindo isso, foi expandindo. Eu achando que eu ia ficar uns 10 anos na casa, fiquei 1 ano e meio. Não cabia mais. Eu estava saindo fundo para tudo quanto é lado. E aí, nessa época, lá em 2021, a gente já estava com metarrísio, a bovéria registrado. E aí não tinha como mais ficar lá. Sim, você já saiu tropeçando. Eu já tinha sido expulsa, né? Não tinha mais sala lá, lugar lá, porque eu tinha que colocar autoclave lá onde eu estava. E aí surgiu a oportunidade, não sei se vocês sabem, ali perto da igreja de Nossa Senhora Aparecida, onde era o jeito caseiro, da Biomip para lá. Então, era uma área de 60 metros quadrados que eu estava, eu ia para 800, 700. Eu falei, meu Deus, eu vou, né? Aí peguei, a gente começou a fazer todo o projeto, e aí o que eu falei? Eu quero ter uma empresa que eu possa trazer pessoas para ver. Porque eu tive muita dificuldade nisso, em conhecer. Só que o processo, ninguém sabe. Ele pode olhar para seu pão, um monte de arroz com fungo ali. Mas o que você tem que fazer para você construir aquilo é um caminho gigante. Só que assim, eu vim da universidade, eu tinha que sair daqui e lá em São Paulo conhecer na época do mestrado. Eu falei, não, eu quero ter uma empresa aqui que eu recebo pessoas. Então, ela foi totalmente planejada para receber pessoas. Então, todo o processo construído para isso. E aí, em 2022, a gente mudou para essa sede e em 2025, a gente viu que cada vez mais a gente precisa estar perto da universidade, perto dos pesquisadores, porque a gente precisa levar a inovação. E aí surgiu a oportunidade da gente vir ter uma sala no Parque Tecnológico. Então, nós vamos montar ali um centro de P&D. Então, com a oportunidade de levar os estagiários, de ter pessoas ali dentro, tirar muita coisa que a gente sabe que está na gaveta da universidade, ter a oportunidade de levar isso para o mercado. Então, nós, com o primeiro registro, a gente já ganhou o mercado, muito focado, né, no produtor de pecuária. Iniciamos com os pequenos e fomos crescendo, né, e sempre com muita qualidade. Então, aqui é onde a gente começou, na casa, e para onde a gente está hoje, né? Então, assim, eu falo que quando eu mudei para lá, eu ficava com dor na perna no final do dia de andar lá dentro. Eu falava, meu Deus, esse negócio é grande demais. E hoje, a Biomip, ela já está com 5 produtos no mercado. Então, vamos falar, nós estamos entrando no 6º ano e vamos colocar mais 3 produtos esse ano no portfólio. Então, nós temos um produto à base de Bovéria, um produto com blend de tricodermas, outro que é a mistura de Bovéria mais metarrísio, o Biometa, né, que foi o início de tudo, e um bionematicida agora, que a gente lançou no final do ano, que é um blend de bacilos. Então, aqui é uma fotinha, né, deles. Aqui dos nossos produtos. Então, o que a Biomip focou? Nós queremos ser diferente, até porque eu não consigo brigar com os gigantes. Então, eu tenho que sair dessa vala e entregar um produto com maior qualidade, maior viabilidade, entrega diferenciada para o cliente e um pós-venda. Eu preciso ensinar ele a usar, a ver o resultado no campo. Então, a Biomip focou muito nisso, nessa entrega de resultado. E aí, eu quero atender o Brasil todo. Então, nós temos um produto altamente concentrado que eu consigo aplicar doses menores por hectare. Hoje, a Biomip está no Brasil todo. Aqui, a gente avalia muito viabilidade, a gente faz todo o processo de controle biológico de qualidade dentro da fábrica já, fazemos testes de compatibilidade de produtos químicos, porque é muito importante, a gente sabe que o perfeito era, eu vou aplicar só o biológico, de noite, de tarde, mas isso não existe. Então, a tecnologia ela precisa encaixar no que é a realidade do produtor. Então, a gente faz esse acompanhamento. Então, a gente sabe, né, que é muito importante os fatores, né, de sucesso para o biológico dar resultado. Então, umidade, compatibilidade de produtos na mistura de caldo, temperatura, né, a limpeza dos equipamentos, porque, assim, gente, eu já escutei cada história que é de arrepiar o cabelo, que as pessoas fazem. Fala que limpa, aí joga soda, faz uma confusão. Então, assim, é os detalhes que fazem a diferença, né? A radiação e essa mistura, né? Eu tenho que acompanhar tanto os bióticos quanto os abióticos. Não adianta eu querer virar e falar assim, eu vou mandar um produto para você que é um 10 da quinta. Não vai fazer resultado, gente. Não existe. Até ele chegar lá, o que perdeu, né? Então, assim, a gente tem que ter essa consciência de que eu tenho que ter a segurança do que realmente eu estou entregando para o produtor. Porque senão ele não vai dar resultado. Nós trabalhamos com organismo vivo. E essa educação a gente precisa dar para o produtor. Ou você não está trabalhando com químico, você está trabalhando com organismo vivo que vai te entregar até mais do que o químico. Você tem que ter todo o cuidado com ele. Então, a Biomip focou, né, em produtos de alta qualidade, entrega personalizada. Então, eu entrego para o cliente quando ele vai usar. Ele não vai deixar no armazém lá, no sol, que a gente não tem controle. Então, a gente tem todo esse cuidado. Um atendimento muito próximo do cliente, a gente vai lá, a gente ensina. Os que são muito longe, que a gente não tem equipe, nós temos a recomendação de uso, temos uma pessoa técnica para estar auxiliando, tirando todas as dúvidas. Então, esse pós-venda é muito importante. Então, nós trabalhamos com microbiologia, né, o biológico, nós temos que ter esse cuidado. Nós precisamos, é o detalhezinho que a gente acha que o produtor sabe, que ele não sabe. Nós precisamos ensinar isso para ele. Então, hoje, a Biomip, ela atende todo o território nacional, com diversas culturas, grãos, pastagem, HF, e vários segmentos. Então, no sul, tabaco, uva. Então, nós estamos em todo o Brasil, nem todo o Brasil com pessoas da Biomip, né? Então, a gente faz muito atendimento via digital. Então, a gente atende os pequenos produtores, independente do tamanho que ele é, nós temos desde meio hectare a 5 mil hectares, 10 mil hectares. Então, a gente atende esse público todo e a gente vê que o mercado ele ainda é muito carente. Então, assim, de tantas pessoas que vêm procurar a gente dessa forma, você vê que ele não tem acesso na região dele. Porque senão ele não ia procurar, né? Ele vai atrás de uma empresa que ele não sabe onde que é, não conhece, mas ele acredita, confia e compra. E vê o resultado e depois ele indica para os vizinhos. Então, em 2025, né, eu tive uma grande felicidade de poder voltar para onde eu, né, criei todo esse anseio do empreendedorismo, do biológico, né, de levar isso. Então, a gente recebeu as chaves em dezembro, então, eu fiquei muito feliz de ter essa oportunidade, né, quando falou que ia lançar o parque, eu falei, a gente foi um dos primeiros ali a se candidatar, porque, apesar de ter o lado do empreendedorismo, eu tenho muito lado de pesquisadora. E lá, a gente não tem esse espaço, né? Então, a nossa intenção é ter um espaço aqui dentro da universidade, poder dar a oportunidade de estudantes viverem, né, o que é uma indústria, né? Ela está dentro da cidade. Então, eu quero mostrar, ter a oportunidade de fazer o que muitos fizeram por mim, que é dar a oportunidade de aprender. E nada melhor do que você aprender com uma empresa que já faz no dia a dia, né? Então, ali a nossa intenção é montar um P&D e depois trazer o setor comercial administrativo para dentro. E, quem sabe, construir uma indústria também, né? Então, fiquei muito feliz de ter essa oportunidade de estar aqui. Então, nós ainda somos pequenos, mas a gente vai ser muito grande. Então, o sonho, você tem que acreditar no que você faz. E aí, o resto tem. É trabalho, é suor e você conquista, né? Então, você tem que acordar todo dia para ser diferente. Igual para onde no mundo. Você tem que ser diferente, porque você vai conquistar. Ainda mais, assim, cada dia mais a gente está vendo isso. E as pessoas querem o fácil. O fácil não vai te trazer aonde você quer chegar. Então, tudo que a gente precisa, tudo que um sonho precisa para ser realizado, alguém tem que pedir dinheiro, né? Então, lá atrás, muita gente acreditou no meu sonho e a gente está hoje aqui entrando no 6º ano, já com várias conquistas, né? Que, assim, tem hora que eu sento, eu não acredito. Falo, opa, nós já estou desse tamanho, né? Mas, assim, acreditem. Obrigada, gente.
Obrigado, Fernanda.
Em nome do GCP, a gente só te entregar uma lembrancinha mesmo.
Obrigada.
Obrigado pelo conhecimento.
Obrigada.
Questions to Fernanda? So, improve the translation in the document.
Qual foi o seu maior, ou os maiores desafios que você teve durante empreendedorismo?
Muita falta de informação, sabe? Assim, eu apanhei muito para descobrir as coisas. E aí de tudo. É legislação, é os órgãos que não sabem explicar o caminho e te cobram por isso. Então, eu acho que um dos grandes desafios foi a questão de burocracia mesmo. E depois, quando aí eu estava com a parte burocrática, o grande desafio foi, ninguém fala como é que faz. Eu tenho que descobrir. Então, foi muito erro e acerto. Então, eu acho que o Brasil precisa evoluir muito nisso. Porque ele te cobra muito, ele quer que você entregue, mas ele te cobra demais e ele não te ajuda com isso.
Muitas empresas hoje, até grandes, elas estão investindo assim, em pequenas empresas como um braço de inovação. Então, comparando com grandes empresas, o que é que você vê como vantagem ser uma pequena empresa em relação a uma grande que está brigando pela mesma fatia do mercado? O que é que seria um diferencial de uma pequena empresa que vai começar?
Acho que é agilidade. Você não precisa sair pedindo bênção para Deus no mundo. 2 passos aqui você já resolveu. Então, acho que é muito isso. Acho que a agilidade faz toda a diferença. E a entrega, né? Acho que você consegue acessar coisas mais rápido. Apesar de não ter o dinheiro que as grandes têm, mas tem essa agilidade.
conectar com a universidade faz todo sentido,
Faz
né?
todo
Porque aí você consegue trazer essa inovação mais rápido. So thinking about the collaboration with UT, if a student from UT comes to Lavras, is there a possibility for the student to do an internship at UT? Então, se o estudante vem, né, então a gente está pensando muito numa colaboração bilateral. Se ele vier para o Brasil, além do ecossistema UFLA e todos os laboratórios, sabendo que a Biomib está dentro da universidade, também dentro desse ecossistema. Seria uma possibilidade para o estudante estagiar na empresa também?
Sem dúvida. E é um aprendizado, né? A oportunidade da Biomib aprender muito e eu acho que quem está vindo também aprende muito com nós. E estando dentro da UFLA, um dos grandes pontos, né, o que eu enxergo que a gente veio é para isso. É para estar perto e dar oportunidade. Porque para mim foi muito importante as oportunidades que eu tive. E aí eu me sinto vencedora, né? Falo que eu tenho que entregar isso agora.
Quem sabe, who knows the Biomib UT starts there with alumnus from there that gets inspired, a branch that starts in the US. I think there's a big market opportunity, but we need to understand better the peculiarities.
Unfortunately, we have a lot of what we call snake oils.
That's
Too many products that say they have things in them that don't even have them in them, or promise to do something that they don't do. And so there's skepticism, but there's also optimism that there is something there. They're just waiting to find something that does actually do and say what it says.
Results.
Sim, acho que é um pouco do que você falou também no começo, do que ter o produto que não funciona. Né? Você comentou um pouco sobre o prototype, que é assim, tá sempre irritado. Acho que esse é um pouco do que a gente passou. Alguns desses produtos chegaram, não tem resultado, a gente não consegue provar nenhuma mudança no campo. Acho que os biológicos vivem um pouco disso nos Estados Unidos hoje, quer dizer, já usei, não funcionou. Então, o que você está fazendo de novo agora que eu vou usar isso? Acho que esse é o ponto que a gente viu hoje.
E a gente viu isso muito, né? A gente testa produtos, você vê, não tem nada de dentro.
Choose to test the product, they have no inside.
Não tem nada, e aí, assim, isso aí queima, né?
And you learn
So that's a real challenge. So when you come up with a solution, there are other guys that come up with the exact solution. But it doesn't, it's not exactly the same problem. Then you start to lose your. Just with Tennesse and Bulgaria, the same strain, we have 170 different companies that have the same product in Brazil. Tem 170 empresas hoje, só com as mesmas desenvolvendo mecanismos. This is the same product. So
95% of them.
10% of the products. But in Brazil, we really see the difference. So we need that. We need this fungicide. If you keep going, you definitely lose and take a seat. So, just a curiosity, só uma curiosidade, você sabe o que é stakeholder, que ela falou? A tradução em português é água de batata.
In Portuguese, it means they want the explanation. We will translate it.
Faz parte da visão deles. So we are going to wrap up, but before that, I'd like to thank you very much for staying all the way. The shift in the agenda, so
we knew that would be a 12-hour day, but we are glad to have this group of people here. Yeah. We started at 7:30.
Thank Roberto Magalhães, who was in the backstage working
Helping a lot.
Ariane, and all the DRI team and our awesome international players. Vinicius, that was the last minute recruitment.
The IT guy.
So all the ones that could not attend, so the link that we have generated, recorded everything and share with colleagues, so we can always come back to learn more about the extension studies. Thank you very much for all the information shared. I'm sure it's just the beginning of a long-term collaboration. We already know Fox Global is there. You team is there. So we found out that we have a UT alumnus here. That's one of our professors, and he is one of the leader persons in the Capitol. So his name is.
We need to know that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. For me, it's a moment that it's holiday moment. So back. But he was responsible to be a force responsible. So it's not in the radar and actually the country.
I need that name.
Climate change, he's the guy. So, pessoal, vamos tirar uma foto todo mundo? Talvez aqui na frente.
Eu acho que pode ficar todo mundo do lado. Guilherme.
Mas só que do jeito que tá mesmo.
Na frente.
Tá, então, tá.
Faz várias
Bota-
fotos. Bota.